Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever, whenever that you may be tuning in. This is Yonks, and this is our first working group for Gigs Go Green, where we're discussing the Colorado bylaws for the public benefit cooperatives that we're going to be launching here, if everything goes as planned, via a regulation crowdfunding offering on the Chainraise platform. And join with me today and Mrs. Yonks, Tyler, my superpower, and also uh, Nick and Amy. Welcome, everybody.
Hey,
Good. Hey, good to be here.
So we're gonna hop right in because we've got we don't have much agenda. The main agenda is to talk about the bylaws. And before I kick it over to Tyler, one of the things that I want to put forward here is that we're one of the requirements that we have before our regulation crowdfunding offering goes live is that we have to provide our bylaws to the SEC. And my understanding is that if there's any changes to these bylaws, it's a process to get those updated. So what we're going to want to, and we're really wanting these bylaws to be community owned and operated. And I'm not going to unpack what that can look like, but one of the ways that we're doing that is through this working group series. And this is a working group series that we're going to be running throughout the next year. Whenever our regulation crowdfunding offering goes live on Chainraise, that will give us 1 year to fulfill our ability to raise up to 5 million for each of the three synergistic cooperatives within Gigs Go Green. So wanting to incorporate an iterative process where we're going to intentionally review these bylaws on a quarterly basis. And then we can decide if that's something that we want to continue to do. And that's one of the things that we can architect within the bylaws as far as changing the bylaws. But when you think about a foundational organizing document, this is one of those foundational organizing documents for these Colorado public benefit corporations. And we are structuring these as a limited cooperative associations here in Colorado. And I'm not going to unpack the reasons why that we're using those entity types here in Colorado, but we feel that it's most aligned as far as creating cooperatives. And we're planning to use DAO tooling to operate these cooperatives, but that's a side conversation. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go right into the one for Tesla Black, and I'm going to turn this over to Tyler. She's the one, and thank you, Tyler, for the work that you did to move this effort forward. We've literally got less than 3 weeks wanting to do our offering to go live on Earth Day 2024, which is on April 22nd, which is a Monday. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking and over to you, Tyler.
Okay, thanks, Jason. So as you can see on the screen, the first thing that we have to decide is about the membership. Do you want to run through the table of contents real quick or just go straight in the editing?
Whatever you, and perhaps you could provide a little backstory as far as where that you obtained this initial bylaws from, just from
Yeah, so
understanding.
I started researching these and I actually need to get a proper citation on these. I actually don't have it in here, so I need to get this. But what I started doing was just researching what active co-ops have public bylaws and what do they all have in common. And overwhelmingly what I realized was the structure and framework of who's a member, what rights do they have, what financial bind do they have, if any, what responsibilities, what legal obligations, um, how do you kick them out if that needs to happen, um, how do you pay your taxes, how do you distribute any profits that happen, all those kind of things are all the same kind of generic things that I'm seeing in all these different co-ops. And the actual purpose of the co-op is I'm not sure if that really fits in the bylaws. That seemed more like an operating agreement thing from the co-ops that I've read. So that's the structure of this. If people feel like I'm missing stuff, I'm happy to add, edit, change, or whatever. This is obviously not set in stone, but it's just a jumping off point. So also thanks to Nick for doing the first level of editing. So the first thing I want to talk about is Article 1. Jason, if you can just scroll down to the actual article.
And real quick, one of the things that I didn't mention that's absolutely worth mentioning is that we do have a cooperative attorney that we have engaged through Web3 Freedom Club, and that's Jeff Pote. And the way that we're going to engage him on this process is after we get the initial version, before we and whether it's something that we bring to the community first, we can make that decision. But he's going to be involved in the second version that will update whenever we do the update after we have more members within these cooperatives.
Cool. So here, stop right here, Jason, or go back up one to the introduction. So I added this part in. This was not originally part of the stock. It was just what I realized was we didn't actually say what the co-op was doing. So on a really basic level, this is what we're going to do. We're going to raise money, buy cars, use them for ride share, and we want to be pretty clear about what is not negotiable. So people say like, hey, let's buy a fleet of Ford Focuses. It just doesn't fit in what we're doing right now, whatever, this kind of thing. So what we want to make sure is that we have a basic understanding so that there's not any unclarity on what we're doing. And then the second thing is the second non-negotiable is Tesla Black Colorado needs to be in Colorado. I didn't know if we wanted to add in that people said, well, what if we wanted to put it in, Georgia or somewhere else? We're planning on having these in every state that we have the demand for and the money for. And I don't know if we wanted to nix the outside the US.
And let me actually just specify here is that when we do expand into another state, it won't be using this entity. So I think that we should really change this section here to, and I don't know if it makes sense to talk about that, but this entity that we're talking about here, P token ID, TBK, Tesla Black, and I think that we should probably make this say Tesla Black of Colorado or some clear indicator, or maybe even just use the TBK CO.
Yeah, just make
I think that's
TBK CO, and
probably
then
the yeah.
Yeah, let's just do that, and then just put a note here to.
And I'm gonna do a comment here real quick. Let's I'm gonna just put it right here, and I'm gonna put it at the top actually. Comment. Where's my comment thing?
It's the pencil next to the edit button on the top right.
This one?
Yeah, click the pencil, and then you hit suggestion. No, go back to where you were. Hit the editing button, and then hit suggesting, and then it redlines it.
I thought there was a comment. Anyway, I don't know if it's because I'm in a print layout. Anyway, we'll get that commented. So, and yeah, and this, however, that we want to change the verbiage on this is that this entity is for the sole purpose of Colorado, and when we, as a Gigs Go Green community, decide to expand into another state, and that's one of the things that's pretty exciting about this Gigs Go Green model is that we're intentionally architecting on a state-by-state basis. And one of the reasons that we're doing that is so that people, because like one of the problems that we're looking to solve with this model is by allowing people to invest into this entity, TBK CO, Tesla Black of Colorado, and see that capital deployed within their own local communities. And like just to kind of plant a seed, two states that are most high on our expansion for several different reasons are New York and Minnesota. And I'm not even going to unpack that
Jason,
there, but go ahead.
You're getting off
Yes.
point here. Let's get
Thank
back
you.
to it.
Back to you.
Okay, thanks. So go down to the next one, articles of classes of members. So the first thing that we need to talk about is later in the document, Article 3 talks about all members having voting rights. We need to define whether it's active workers and financial investors. Do they both get voting rights? And so that's the first question is, do financial investors only, non-workers, get voting rights in anything?
No, we're definitely wanting and this is one of the things that we're going to be creating an opt-in governance where the financial investor and this is one of the things like as a part of the onboarding of gig workers and primarily Uber and Lyft drivers that this model is for the primary benefit of will have a education process as far as how that they participate in cooperative governance. And then similarly, the investors will have to go through a similar process that's an opt-in. And basically, we're architecting a multi-stakeholder opt-in governance model. And as you said, the two main classes of members, and this is two main classes of members right now will be the gig workers and the uh, uh, token investors or the regulation crowdfunding investors. And it could be the same, but this is one of the things that we can limit it where,
Okay,
and
fine, Jason.
go ahead.
Okay, fine. We got a lot to get through, so try to limit the commentary if you can. Okay, so to become a member, pay an initial capital contribution. 1.2 point B is, do we want to define what that is? Because I put, we're going to determine it, but one of the things that people were saying was that, or the feedback that we got was, are we going to allow an earn-in for people that can't afford the buy-in, or is that going to be the $97? And that's just the buy-in, that's not optional.
So the it depends on what class. Well, so you're talking about here classes of members, and it's going to look different whether they're a gig worker member or an investor as far as the workflow or the dynamic to onboard. And one of the things that this is something that I think that we need to take out because like part of the goal with launching the Kickstarter is to allow people to participate in this model. Now, they obviously wouldn't be able to be a driver, owner, operator, and that's one of the things that we should probably really incorporate is three classes of members. Quite honestly, is gig workers, driver, owner, operators, and then the investors.
How would gig workers be different from the driver owner operators?
So when you think about the dynamic here is that we're going to have my expectation and belief is that we're going to have far more people that want to be participating in this model than we'll have vehicles for. So this is one of the things that we're going to create is a vetting process, as Amy has said in some previous conversations, who can go from a gig worker to a driver, owner, operator. So and that may be like and think of because like when somebody's just a gig worker, they'll be able to receive benefits of this ecosystem even though that they're not a driver owner operator, and we still want them to vote from a governance standpoint in the decisions.
Okay, fine. Let's keep moving. So I'm adding in comments here. So be approved by the existing members. And 1.3, this is how we're actually going to do it, and we can obviously change all this.
And this is something that I would probably take out. I think that to elevate from a gig worker to the driver owner operator, that's where there's this approval process that needs to occur, the vetting process.
Okay, let's add a comment there. Applicable to promoting drivers to
and we make reference to a disclosure statement. Is that a document that we're planning on creating?
The disclosure statement that I was thinking about was, and I don't know if we have already covered this extensively enough in the rest of the document, but things like, if you get a DUI, you're automatically out. If you do something that significantly changes our insurance risk, if you become ineligible for ride share for whatever reason, or things like that. I'm saying like there are, if your status changes, you're just out, like sort of no questions asked. And I don't know if we've already defined that enough. So we can go back to that. The other thing is we need to disclose. I need to talk to Chainrace and see what all we need to disclose to them. Like, we're going to send you tax forms of patronage dividends, and you're required to report them, or whatever. I'm not sure what all we're legally required to disclose. I threw that in there kind of as a catch-all of if I don't know what to disclose, let's figure that out and then make sure that we're okay. All right, so acceptance of members, we just talked about that as the promotion. So let's keep going. We're still in section 1 and we're going longer here than I thought we would. So members may not transfer their memberships. One of the things that the feedback came back on was I had originally intended this to be, if I'm a driver and I'm in, I can't just give you, Jason, my driver membership because I want to. If I pull out, then my spot just goes to the next person in line in the co-op through the process. It's not transferable. But I didn't also specify that you can't sell your interest if you're a financial investor. And I don't know if we want to specify that you can sell it, or you can only sell it back to the co-op, or the co-op gets first right to refusal on financial things, or if we just want to specify this is only applying to driver members.
I'm okay right now with the non-transferal component within the bylaws, because I mean, besides there, and I don't know what the 1 year lockup is, but like just from the investor standpoint, because that's the only transferability component that will have really a financial interest of transferring. And that's one of the things that we can kind of lean on Chainrace as far as getting some verbiage in here to incorporate that, because there absolutely is a 1 year lockup. And I don't know if that 1 year is from when they buy into our regulation crowdfunding offering, or if that's a 1 year from when the offering concludes. But that's something that I'm hoping that we can have some additional verbiage in. And again, this is going to be an iterative process over the next year.
All right, let's keep going.
The
So,
Go ahead, Nick.
First right of refusal on there might be a good thing for us to hold on to. Maybe we just want to think about that, because if the co-op does want to take some of that ownership back from that person, that might be a convenient thing. I don't know. I could just see that being valuable.
You mean, and this is something like buying back their
So if they
tokens or their
sell, yeah, it's like you know the co-op can say no, we'll buy that instead. Like it gives the co-op an option to buy it instead of letting them sell to whoever. So they'll propose. Generally, this works like they propose a price. You know, somebody says I'll buy your interest in this from you, and then the co-op could say no, we'll pay you that same amount, but we're going to take that, and that way the co-op can keep it in-house and it's not going out to anybody external or anything like that. I mean, we kind of have that buttoned up here with what this says, but it is an interesting option to keep things kind of in-house, if you will.
I'm
no,
gonna put a note in here, Nick, that just says active driver members can't transfer their memberships. Financial only members may transfer with something with our, because if they're past the lockup and we get rights of first refusal and they're able to sell it legally, then I just need to know if we have any requirements as far as KYC of who they're selling it to.
And again, I think that we should just curb that, because there's some regulation crowdfunding things that we have to comply to, and I think getting some understanding what that looks like, and then just incorporating that into here from a verbiage standpoint, because that's the main consideration. Because normally
here, Jason, let's keep going.
Okay.
So Article 2, termination of membership. I tend to draft things more broadly of you have the right to resign because you want to. You can just let us know. You have the right to um, resign, or you have the right to resign just because death or disability. And then the question was expulsion. Um, I put for any lawful reason, and I was thinking that's when I was thinking like you you commit a crime or you like if there's any reason that we could do it that's not a prohibited reason to cut somebody. But the feedback was, do we want to make it more specific than that? I actually kind of like it as any lawful reason because it leaves it pretty broadly because I'm sure somebody's going to come up with something crazy and then we're going to have to amend the bylaws of the vote and whatever. Like if you commit a crime and you screw up the co-op, I'd like to just be able to call a vote on that. We already have 75% for expulsion, so it's a pretty high threshold. And I don't know if we want to change that to 51 or whatever, but I just don't want people to feel like we are trapping them in a business relationship with somebody who they feel like is not legally allowed to be in the relationship anymore.
I don't have any thoughts on that, but just a thought that I do have here where we're talking about the cooperative, I just prefer to see that replaced with that TBK CO that we talked about earlier.
Where are you seeing that?
Just like in the section here, instead of calling it the cooperative, just be consistent with and like, because like this whole section is talking about the cooperative.
Yeah,
I would
I know
prefer.
because it's the same across the three bylaws. That's so when we've got a final-ish version, we can do that. I've been copying and pasting the stuff that's generic. That's why it's like that. Anyway,
Okay, cool.
the section G was conviction of a crime, anything other than a minor traffic violation or anything that costs us more than $1,000. This was like you total a car, you hit somebody with the car, whatever, like whatever you do that significantly damages the car or the co-op. I want the board to just be able to just toss you if there's something that is majorly wrong. If it's anything that's a question mark, then the members should get to vote on it. Or if the person requests a vote, I think they should get to have a vote on it. But I don't know if that is okay with you guys or if that's too much power to the board.
I don't have any objections to that. In fact, the one thing I was going through my mind is that 75% almost seems like it might be challenging to achieve sometimes. Maybe not because these will be smaller co-ops, but
Well, I mean,
um,
do you want to change to 51?
I mean, I'd be fine with 51. That generally feels good to me, but
Yeah, that's
yeah.
fine.
So,
The are you guys okay with
Well,
the
and to be clear, Nick, this isn't going to be this is and one of the things too, because we're also going to have the mic, because I think you're thinking of like the micro cooperative for like the two cars and the four drivers. That's going to be a different set of agreements than what we're here. This is to cover the entire operation for Colorado. So there's going to be a smaller entity for that dynamic. And anyway, just a side thought there.
yeah. So, okay, let's keep going on that. Um, Distinctions between member meetings and director meetings. All members of the co-op are voting members. One of the things is that we need to I'm gonna change this to all class A members um are voting members, and the reason why is because that sub class B are the financial only investors, so they don't get a vote on this stuff. The reason that, or the next section, that every group of members who represents a single cooperative may elect one member. This is the one car, two drivers. So both of them don't get to be directors. They just need to pick one who represents that car, and that person gets both the votes.
So real quick, Tyler, again, this bylaws doesn't need to incorporate the operations of the car dynamic, because again, there's going to be a separate LLC likely that that has that situation. And that's going to be a separate operating agreement than the bylaws here.
All right, well, I'm just gonna put edit this section for what's in the operating agreement. And we'll get back to that another time. All right, so we'll do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip down to do you want to skip this entire voting section or
Yeah, because I think that there's probably some opportunity to incorporate the on-chain aspects of what we're doing as far as having that. And I
Yeah,
don't know if there's some good verbiage on that.
Yeah, that's fine. The only thing is that Nick brought up something about how on-chain doesn't necessarily mean permanent now. So I don't know if we want to address that.
I'm not sure I understand that.
Do you want to explain that, Nick, with the block replacement and the consensus voting with the DAO hack?
Yeah, you can, a chain can be rolled back. So, I mean, that was, that's just something that you have to be aware of. It's extremely unlikely. It shouldn't happen. But there is a possibility that a transaction goes in and then is later goes backwards. And that can even happen through a reconciliation process where, you have two transactions that are submitted around the world at different places around the world. And it takes a while for the entire chain to come to consensus, and one of those transactions that were submitted at the same time, maybe they're exclusive, right? Only one can go in, the other one will invalidate the other one. The blockchain will settle on one or the other, and it's just through consensus. And that other transaction that looked like it was legitimate for a while will actually disappear off the chain. So it's just something we have to account for. This is why you see things like Coinbase makes you wait for a certain amount of transactions after like 20 or 30 transactions, and there's some statistics to be 99% sure that we would never have anything come back. Once you get out over 100, it's essentially it should never happen. But that's something
I don't know if that's even necessarily a consideration, because unless we make a pretty hard pivot right now, planning on using snapshot.org for governance as far as proposals, and that's a off-chain mechanism. So if there is any sort of like on-chain rollback, because like we're using. Go ahead, Tyler.
Let's keep going on that. Just
Yeah.
we got a lot more to cover. So as long as you're a member before 30 days, you can have it. We don't allow proxy voting. We written ballots. We need to reference somehow electronic snapshot or whatever. But just something that we're not going to do oral votes. Quorum. This is something that, Nick, to your point, getting people together can sometimes be a challenge. So if something doesn't require 51%, I just made the quorum 5%. I'm just saying if we just need to sort of do the co-op's business, that's not generally controversial or doesn't otherwise require all the voting members, then I just put it 5%.
Yeah, and this is something that we're going to be configuring on Snapshot, and that's one of the things that I want to make sure that there's consistency as far as what we're communicating in the bylaws and what we configure on Snapshot. So I vote that we just keep on going here.
Okay, fine. Article 4, director meetings. We can put this.
Did you want to cover anything else in section 3?
Well,
because like I see like we're not going to have a physical main office. So like here, this is not in section 3.3.
Yeah. Okay, let me take that out. I think I've got that in section 8 also.
So and just looking at the time, I mean, we've got 15 minutes here, and one of the things that seems pretty apparent is that I think that we should have a another conversation to talk about the bylaws, and I'm thinking Monday or Tuesday next week, unless we want to try to squeeze it in here sooner than that. But what is everybody's thoughts as far as a second working group before we like say, hey, this is we're happy with this?
It's fine with me.
So I'll take a look at our calendar because like I said, the clock is ticking here April 4th and needing to get this over to Chainray so that they can add anything else so that we can hopefully be on track for our Earth Day launch. So I'll create the Let Us Meet, but go ahead, Tyler.
All right, so you do that. Let's keep going on. Articles 4 and 6. I put directors can't serve more than 4 continuous years. I don't know if we want to say in any contested seat, you're out after 4 continuous years. What it was saying was if you lose your institutional memory if you're replacing your directors all the time, but I think we can do that with staggered votes. And I I don't know if that's going to be a problem or if we want to say if there is if there are no candidates for a seat and a term limited director wants to keep going, then fine, but otherwise they have to step aside. I don't know what's more important, institutional memory or we could just throw in like an ex officio, like a emeritus director, whatever. So something to think about there.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I'm really hoping will get refined through having more people within the organization to really bring this more to a community consensus. So it's
Okay, so we'll keep going. I'm just gonna put a note in there for institutional memory. Okay, Article 7, fiscal and financial provisions. The they're just asking for more details about auditing and financial reporting. I think we're gonna take care of that. We're gonna take care of a significant part of that with the blockchain. If you want to see the books, you can just look at them. We can just have links available and maybe have a tutorial. If you don't know how to look at something on a blockchain, we could just make a YouTube video saying click here, this is how you do it.
no, I think that my expectation is that we need to use some technology that automates this type of a process on, like using like Dune Analytics, for example, or whatever. But that's something that we can, that again, this is going to be an iterative process and stuff like that. So
We can also integrate displays of information that is on chain in a pretty easy way.
yeah. And I'm not sure what the because one of the things wanting to do too is architect a return in the form of dividends for the investors, and I don't know if that's something that we have specified in here as well.
I'm not sure. I need to take a look at that. Under Article 9. So the patronage dividends, I need to talk to Chainrays and see if we did these right. A lot of the stuff is you have to declare income, you have to distribute interest, redeem members' accounts and whatever. So we can go through all that and see what this
Well, and I don't know if Chainraise is going to be able to provide any guidance on that, because one of the opportunities that we need to find as far as a subject matter expert is somebody that's can help us with the subchapter T classification, which is the IRS designate primary benefit for cooperatives to minimize at the corporate taxation level. And that's where like the patronage dividends come into play and stuff like that. So
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. So let's keep going. Article 8, corporate records. I know we're not going to have a physical office, but there's also references for things that we are legally required to publish in the newspaper. I don't know if the physical office might end up being in my basement or whatever, because I need to, I don't know if that's a requirement. If we can say, are we legally able to say we don't have a physical office? You can't, like, it has to be virtual only. So we just need to find that out.
Well, I mean, we do have like the mailing address that we use, and that's one of the things that I think is
Well,
acceptable for. Go
well,
ahead.
something that was in there was you're able to examine our physical records during standard business hours, and obviously you can't stop by the mail service and look through our books, and because that's not what they do.
Well,
Anyway,
when you say in here, but this is somebody else's bylaws that you
no, I
drafted.
understand, but it, again, stock language. I don't know if it's legally required or not. That's why I didn't take it out.
Well,
So
that's one of the things that we will have the opportunity through our
here
second
we
review process
here,
with
Jason.
Jeff Pote from a
Jason,
legal perspective
I
to
yeah, I understand.
incorporate that.
Yeah, we got to keep going here. Um, Article 9, indemnification. We it's saying expand the definitions of what's indemnified and what's not. I don't know if I don't know if that language really needs to be expanded, but unless the directors feel like it does, and things like personal liability, that kind of thing. Um, bylaws changes. This is where I put in the quarterly meetings, and then defined by voting members, and that's it.
And just to kind of go off on a tangent here, and this is more for Nick to have some consideration, and we can have a side conversation about that. But one of the things that I'm really would like to do is get like the bylaws on GitHub or potentially Radical, which is I think that anyway. So similarly to how we have the Web3 Freedom Club DAO LLC operating agreement, so that we can have that very public, and then like the opportunity to potentially have a template so that we can just fork that for, the next state that we launch, so that we can just have that as a baseline and then modify that as necessary on a state by state basis. So think about how that we want to reflect that within the GitHub framework for these organizations. Because this is like anyway, just putting that out there.
Yeah. Sure, we can figure that out. Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so that's the um that's most of it, and then we just have a couple more things to go
And
over.
I on the bylaws changes here in Article 10, I would like to have some more specific language, like where we actually have a specific week, uh, and just break that out where we have here throughout, like April or May of 2025, uh, designated bylaws working groups where we'll have a similar format where people can participate in a similar manner at this, with hopefully a lot larger participation. Because again, really wanting this to be something that people are aware of, and yeah. So I'll
Yeah.
take that as a personal action item to take a look at the calendar, and then this is also something that gonna circulate a plan to the plan as far as the forward plan to Jeff Pote, who is our Colorado Public Benefit Cooperative attorney that's going to be assisting to give a legal stamp of approval throughout the iterative process that we're building here for the bylaws changes.
Yeah, and then just a couple more things, then we'll wrap it up. Accessibility and clarity. I am expecting people to come with a pretty wide variety of professional backgrounds, and potentially some people who English is not their first language. So I don't know if these bylaws if we need to do a side by side, being like, and this is what this means, and kind of like the plain language side by side, if we just say, hey, if you have questions, just ask and we'll tell you, or um whatever. So I don't want, part of it is, I think that we're giving people, this is pretty member forward, so I don't know that we have a lot of liability to worry about because people don't sue you when you're trying really hard to be in their best interest. But I also know that sometimes people sue you anyway, because so, just something to think about as far as the that, and then um conflict resolution. This is actually something that Paul brought up from the co-op class that we're taking. Was he wanted a detailed description of how we had decided to resolve conflicts, and we I don't have a section here addressing that, so I don't know if we need to add one or
And surrounding that too, I think that we should also include like the uh class action and arbitration is the methodology. So I think that we should incorporate that somewhere here, and I'm not sure what section that would be best to incorporate that, but I think that that's categorically a similar dynamic of yeah.
yeah, the their waiver, severability, binding arbitration. There's a lot of clauses in here that I always assume that we throw in the operating agreement, not the bylaws, but I'm gonna
There's not an operating agreement for a public benefit cooperative. This is in lieu of an operating agreement. Now we can have member agreements where we need, but like, and I already mentioned, like the driver owner operator is going to also be participating within a micro cooperative, and that'll have a different agreement for that micro cooperative. But there we won't have the bylaws in the PBCs are the same difference as an operating agreement within an LLC.
okay. Well, I'll throw in some conflict resolution language at the bottom, and then the last thing is emergency decision making, pandemics, natural disasters, economic downturns. Uber becomes illegal. Nobody's allowed to ride share anymore, but pick some crazy scenario. Denver saying climate change makes Denver fall in the Pacific Ocean. Whatever.
I don't know if we have to worry about several of those, but anyway.
Well,
One thing that is,
Go ahead, Nick.
but the only other thing that's coming to my mind is, I don't know if we've addressed, can a member be an LLC? Like, I know you can legally join a co-op as an LLC, right? And that gives you personally legal liability protection. But I don't know for this particular bylaws, does this say anything about that? Is that allowed? So like if each of the members wanted to, start their own LLC to give themselves protection, liability, like, liability wise, I guess.
And I think that that's a question that we should bundle in with other, because it's absolutely a valid question.
and
Not only from a gig worker perspective, but the opportunity for an entity to acquire our tokens through our regulation crowdfunding offering. So I think that that's probably something that we need to incorporate, but we'll defer that to the legal professionals as far as getting that verbiage included here.
Sounds good.
um, I'm gonna put that in there as something to come back to. Okay, so that is our first set of bylaws. And like I said, other than the introduction, solar EV and the community land trust bylaws are the same. I just changed the introduction on each one. So I feel like if we get this down tight, we could probably just copy them across all three and save ourselves some legal work on having Jeff review all three that are the same.
Well, there's going to be a little difference, and I think that we should make sure that we incorporate that. And again, the main goal here is to check the box so that we can get our regulation crowdfunding offering live, and then through our iterative process where we're going to be onboarding more members. But there's going to be a slight difference. Like when you think about solar EV, there might even be more classes of members, and you're not obviously not going to have a driver, owner, operator class of member within the other two cooperatives with solar EV or Web3 CLT. So I think that there's going to be some nuances there. One of the other things that I'm not seeing in here is the election, like the tax selection, and that's one of the things like getting, and I'm expecting Jeff Pote to bring some experience as far as including that within here. And on that note, I think that, and I don't know if it is defaulted, and this is something that we need to look at as an action item from a timeline standpoint, that we need to as far as the tax selection, select the corporate tax structures, and then the subchapter T, I think, is just a different, like instead of just an 1120, it's like an 1120 cooperative form or something else. So, but that's something that should probably be incorporated here so that we can get that tax selection done.
Yeah.
Well, I feel good with that we're moving in the right direction, and I've got the action item to create the Let Us Meet so that we can get our second working group on the books for this. But anything else before we bring our first working group on the bylaws for Colorado Public Benefit Cooperatives that we're launching under the Gigs Go Green ecosystem, if you will?
Nothing here.
I have a question on the membership, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, on the matter of them getting a refund, why can't we just say, how much is the membership, by the way?
So real quick, Amy, you've got to remember that there's the biggest considerations are around the investors, and that's where because that's one of the classes of members. Now, when you're just talking about a plain Jane gig worker, that's where we're going to be onboarding at a $97 a year membership price point via our Kickstarter. And then we will likely, like talking about driver, owner, operators, will likely have that be a $250 or a $500 buy-in before we put them in behind the wheel of, you know, a $50,000 Tesla.
Yeah, because I understand the investor part. If they don't want to, you know, like a stock, you just sell your stock if you don't want to use it anymore. But as a member, I remember.
I gotta chime in real quick because it's not like a stock, like a publicly traded stock, because we right now there's the 1 year lockup for regulation crowdfunding, and then we're not having any conversations right now as far as establishing any liquidity like what exists in publicly traded stocks. So that's something that we'll be having more conversations. I don't even know if we'll have those conversations in 2024, but that's one of the things that we're looking to create through a P token exchange, and those conversations aren't even happening right now. So
yeah, the other thing, Amy, is if you buy a stock, you sell a stock, it's instant. There's no work for anybody to do that on the back end. With this, we need to meet you, run your credit, run your background, get your insurance quote, get like I need to pre-qualify you for like it's work. So if you just want to check it out and then drive it for a week and I don't like doing this anymore, if I had to go through that work, I want the co-op to not just be like, oh, just come in. If you don't think you want to do this, then I want you to actually have a little skin in the game, because you can't jump in and out too.
That's a little different though, because there's going to be I fully anticipate that there's going to be investors as a class of members that aren't drivers. So the driver consideration, and that's like I said, the driver situation is going to have a separate LLC operating agreement for that micro cooperative. I think the biggest consideration here, and this is again going back to the investor members that have financial skin in the game of what that will look like as far as them wanting to exit their financial position. And that's one of the things that we have to have a better understanding what that looks like surrounding the regulation crowdfunding offering. All right, any other thoughts, questions, concerns for our first working group here today?
Thanks everybody for participating. I know this isn't the most exciting topic, but it is super important. So thanks for showing up and participating, and thanks Nick for the extra effort on getting the review done before this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys. Thanks for putting this all together.
Well, it might not be an exciting
Thank you.
conversation, but limiting exposure is an important one. So that's one of the things that we really want this to be. We're architecting these public benefit cooperatives for the primary benefit of gig workers. And that's one of the things too, Tyler, as far as the purpose of the cooperative, having some synergy as far as what we have on the registered entities with the Secretary of State, and that might be something that we have to do a update with the Secretary of State after we get some feedback from Jeff Pote to make sure that we've got whatever he considers best practices as our attorney representing us here in Colorado for these public benefit cooperatives that we're launching. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking and let anybody else chime in some thoughts, but I think we're about done here with this working group. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you guys. Bye.
Bye.